Hello and welcome back to Anywhere But Here, episode 304. My name is Tom and I'm on my own. Well, I'm not on my own this week. You'll find out that the guest host that I've managed to rope in for this episode is Joe, which many of you will be happy to hear about. You can find us at abhpod.com, where if you scroll down a bit there is an Amazon banner. If you click through the Amazon banner, you do all your shopping on amazon.co.uk as you usually would. It's coming up to Christmas, and this year Christmas needs to be done early because there aren't enough HGV drivers to get your stuff. So get it done, and you know, we get 5% of your total basket spend at the end. You know, it keeps us on the internet. It helps us pay our subscription for the website. If you don't want to do that, you can pay 1 unit of your currency per month. £1, $1, whatever it is, 1 won perhaps, or maybe 10,000 won. We'll talk about that later on. And you can become a patron. For that, you get these main episodes without this laboured intro. You get Spoilercasts as and when myself and Ant watch a film at the same time, and then we talk about it. Or you get video content early. You get early access to that before it goes on the YouTubes and all that. That's our preferred method of doing things because it means that we can cater content for you. And you can have your say as well over at patreon.com/anywhere but here, I think, or ABH Pod. I don't know. I don't usually check it. You can find us on all the social media platforms. We're on facebook.com/abhpod, Twitter @abhpod, and we're on the aforementioned youtube.com/abhpodcast. You can also email us at abhpod@gmail.com if you want to leave kind of long form, although most of the social media platforms let you do that anyway now. I guess it's just if you don't want your name read out and you need us to let us know that you don't want your name read out, which has never happened, so I don't know why we keep saying it. On this episode, I am joined by Joe, as I previously mentioned, and we have watched Squid Game, all of it, all 9 episodes, well, 8.5, and we're here to talk about it in a spoilerific fashion. This is a spoiler cast, as usual with these things. We're going to go into depth, not massive depth, because Joe doesn't like going into huge depth. She doesn't like to, you know, spoil everything, unlike myself. And but we do go into the main plot line. So if you haven't seen Squid Game, A, you're late to the party because we're late to the party already, and B, you should just go and watch it because it's really good. And then you can come back and listen to this and see what we made of it. And then you can get in contact with us on the social medias to let us know how you felt about it. And then we can have a big conversation. And then it's two-way rather than you just listening to us talking about it and not being able to converse. Just get in touch. That's the point of this stuff. So, yeah, without further ado, on to the main episode. Enjoy. There you are. It's nice to have you with me. Is it nice to be back?
You're welcome. Yes.
Must be the first time in a couple of years we've sat down with microphones in front of each other.
The hundreds.
But it's a very special thing that's happened. We've watched a TV show together. Yeah. That's basically all that's happened in the last 3 years.
Well, apart from watching box sets.
Yeah.
And getting slightly frustrated and watching Bob Ross countlessly.
Yes.
Which is nice. Mindfulness is all good. But then when you think you've seen the same landscape before,
hundreds
you start
of times.
It starts to sort of warp your mind a little bit.
The same mountain, the same lovely little log cabin.
The same composite mountain, the same composite log cabin, the little log cabin, the happy accidents in the clouds. Yeah.
And the invisible critters that live there.
Well, that's it. It started to become a bit of a nature programme, didn't it? With his little fairy friends. Yeah. It's quite sweet, though. I mean, a bit of a loss to the world, Bob Ross. There's never been a happier man.
No.
I don't think.
No. And he imbued happiness.
Right up until the last minute, I think.
Indeed. Much unlike the TV show that we're probably going to be spending the majority of this episode talking about, I guess.
Indeed, yeah.
Which, as I'm sure I'll have mentioned in the intro to this episode, we're here to talk about Squid Game.
Yes. That brings dystopia to a new level.
Indeed, yes. As again mentioned in the intro, I'm sure this is a spoiler. It's going to be filled with spoilers. We're going to spoil the crap out of it. So if you've not watched it, and I feel like we were late to the party, even though, it's only been out a few weeks. If you've not watched it by now, you're behind.
Or you've got things to do.
Or that. Maybe you've got more interesting lives. I don't know. But after the last few weeks, it's been nice to just not do things after work or
Well, the nights are drawing in.
They are.
And it seems to be an acceptable thing to sit in front of the TV, doesn't it?
I think so. And it's one of those things as well. It's in the zeitgeist, isn't it? Everyone's talking about it, or it seems that way to me anyway.
I hadn't heard of it until one of my students in my tutor group mentioned it, and then just so happened that you mentioned it the same evening or the evening following, and I thought it was a bit ironic because then two people in the same sort of within 24 hours or 48 hours of each other have mentioned this TV program, and we just I'm not usually that person to go with the crowd.
Jump on a bandwagon.
No, but I don't know. I think I didn't have anything else to lose, I guess.
Well, I'm a bit of a contrarian myself. Look at Game of Thrones, for example. We waited until the last season came out to then binge the lot of it, even though everyone was going on about that for years.
Oh, and I didn't know who was who by the end anyway.
But I felt it was better watching it all in one go than waiting a whole year till the next series came out, or in some cases 2 or 3 years between series. So I think we did it right. In the end, we got
possibly. I think the key parts of the storyline are well and truly remembered, and key characters. But as for all of the secondary characters, not a clue.
No. But so, and the other thing as well is, it's not like we sit down and watch a lot of foreign language films or TV anyway, is it really?
Well, no, I struggle with being able to listen and watch at the best of times without having to listen and watch and then read. And I suppose when you introduced me to Pan's Labyrinth and I had to do all of those things, and I now rate that film and have watched it on a handful of times, and it's been equally enjoyable at every single point, I figured that perhaps I could do this as well. But I think just before we go into the plot and the spoiling, which I am actually against spoiling, but I realise that for the purpose of this, it's a necessary.
It's a podcast. Thing. You've got to do
it. You're kind of wondering whether the subtitles actually fit the dialogue. This is like, let's do
the accent, shall we?
Is fuck. How do you know that that's what they're actually saying?
Well, this is one of the things, actually, and it's why I made sure that we watched the original Korean dub, because there is an English dub that you can choose to watch.
Oh,
where
no.
People have dubbed over the top of it, except what they did, apparently, is try to match the mouth movements. So they've said things that are kind of similar to the translation, but aren't exactly right, just to make it look less dubbed.
Right.
Which makes no sense to me. But also, apparently, even the subtitles are not quite exactly what.
Just pause there. Why did you say, "Oh, you're going to do an accent"? You can't affect a foreign tongue without doing some sort of accent. You can't have a Cockney. Otherwise, it just sounds like something a character of EastEnders.
What's interesting is like
can't do that.
The intonations are in strange places to our Western ears.
Yeah, it's almost as if they mimic the character, the The way the pictogram.
Well,
maybe.
Whatever.
I don't think it's called that, but that will do for now.
Yeah, the symbols.
But anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I mean, I've watched a lot more kind of subtitle things than you, but there are good subtitled things out there, and people should. You've watched Parasite as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was at least one kind of crossover thing between the two. It was the rain and going down the steps and all that kind of thing. There was a point where I said, "Oh, it's a bit like that scene in Parasite where it's really rainy."
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing really like Parasite at all. And I've got to say, like the first episode, I thought I was going to lose patience with it because it wasn't getting to the thing that I was expecting it to. It was well over half an episode in before they even got to the secret.
Yeah, it was very difficult to fathom where it was going. You could see who your main guy was, and the fact that he was of an age where he was perhaps a little bit too dependent on his mum, and you can kind of see the moral lesson that you're going to learn there at some point. But how it all then fitted together was interesting. And then you could see that he was quite a compulsive man. Yeah. And just the lessons that come from compulsivity, I suppose. We won't. Let's not do the bit of the station.
No, I don't.
Let's leave that bit because the point is then, I suppose, that he gets taken away to play a game, and it's a bit like, I suppose, it's a bit like what happens in the Hunger Games, that there is some sort of darkness behind how they travel to the game area. And you start to find the similarities. And the similarities are there in the back of your mind constantly throughout this entire series, I suppose, aren't they? But I didn't get upset about the Hunger Games.
No. No, it's a weird one because obviously the Hunger Games, I think, is based a lot on a Japanese film called Battle Royale,
right?
Which was, I think, early 2000s, and it was basically a whole school year group gets carted off to this island, and they get collars put round their necks, and they're told that you have to stay within a certain perimeter. Well, otherwise, the bomb inside the collar goes off.
Well, that's Lord of the Flies, then, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it all goes back to that. Really.
It goes back to Lord of the Flies, and then we were talking about Lord of the Rings, and we were talking about the fact that the Harry Potter series is basically all lifted from the plot of Lord of the Rings, and it's killing off people at the right time when you don't want to. Even as the writer, you don't want to kill them off, but you have to because that's how the plot travels. But I suppose the difference between the Hunger Games trilogy and Squid Game is the moral code.
Yeah.
Everybody can learn a lesson from the way they treat other humans.
I suppose the Hunger Games thing is that they're allowed to... They're picked at random for no particular reason, are they? And then Jennifer Lawrence's character goes in place of her sister because you're allowed to do that. One person is allowed to do that, if you know. But in this, they're targeted and they're kind of not groomed, but they're specifically
they're targeted for their misconceptions and their mistreatment of
money,
luxuries,
and
the acquisition of money,
so they, our main character, whose name is
Gyok.
Seong Gi-hun.
Oh yeah, that's it. I don't think
it's because we can't. It's hard for us to enunciate.
It's difficult.
The names
because
properly.
they say it so quickly,
and they also say it differently than it's written. Yeah. So anyway,
it's
our
main
like character is tempted to play this game.
Yeah, it's recomposed, I think, as a name.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and he gets into a van one night, is gassed, and wakes up in this hall full of 455
other people. Yes, okay. And the first person
he's 3, 4.
No, he's 4, 5, 6.
Is he? Oh, okay. Sorry.
And the first person he meets is an old guy whose age is indeterminate, but he's considerably older than everybody else, and he's 001.
Yeah.
And he tells us that he has a brain tumour or a tumour on the brain.
Yeah.
However you want to put it. And there's your first sort of moral lesson in that you've got this man, probably late 30s, early 40s, meeting a guy maybe twice his age, and realising that they're both in this competition to win. It's last man standing, isn't it?
And then kind of a squad of pink jumpsuited masked men,
basically looking like symbols from the PlayStation console.
The squares, triangles, and circles, aren't they?
Yeah,
there's
disturbing. No X's.
And apparently that's going to be the new the craze for Halloween costumes this year, which makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, just get yourself a sieve and a hive and a hazmat suit, and you're well away.
Yeah. And they basically say, right, you're all here because you're in crippling debt and you've got no way out. All you got to do is take part in 6 games.
Follow the rules.
There's 3 rules. Get through all 6 and you win the money.
Which sounds quite simple, doesn't it?
Exactly. And it's a lot of money as well.
Yes.
But it's unspecified at the beginning. They don't know how much money it's going to be. There's a giant plastic see-through piggy bank hanging from the ceiling.
One thing that we did find out was the number of 1 to a pound, which we'll come on to later, I think, because it's quite a telling sum of money. But their first game is called Red Light, Green Light. And the rules of the game, really, there's a massive doll right at the end. And the rules of the game are to walk towards the doll. But the minute the doll turns round, you have to stay where you are. And if you continue to move, you're out. Well, I think for me that was where the first, this is what it's going to be like, as it sort of hit. Because they started taking out anyone who moved with a gun. And very quickly, this game that started off with 456 people is reduced by about 100, I think, by the end of that game.
It's almost half, isn't it?
It's almost half, but it's anyway. It's alarming, and the shootings are quite graphic, and so that's quite a tense game, because the rules are that in red light, green light, you stand still, and if you don't stand still, you're out, and it gives a whole new dimension to what being out actually means. Being out means that is your life is extinguished. And what happens then is that, according to the number of people who have lost that game, the piggy bank fills with 1. And it climbs rapidly into the millions.
It's 1 million per person, isn't it?
It is. And then when you think of that, there are 456 people in the game, you're looking at 45.6.
Or you leave with 45.5
billion.
Yeah.
billion in the end, which works out at something like £24 million.
Which is still a lot of money.
Life-changing.
But yeah, so more than half of the people get kind of obliterated, and that's the end of the first episode. There's no real explanation as to who's running this thing. There's a bloke in a black mask.
Yeah.
That you kind of see very briefly, and he's also speaking English towards the end, and he's got that weird kind of jazz automaton.
Let's not
thing.
jump too far ahead.
No, that's the end of the first episode.
It's a peculiar thing. I can't think who he reminds me of, but his face is very geometric. It's made up of little triangles. His mask is made up of triangles. Second episode is a bit quieter.
Yeah, they all decide. Well, they don't all decide, do they? They decide to take a vote on whether they should just cut their losses and leave.
Yeah, and the majority wins, don't they?
Just by one.
By one, because I forget why. Who leads the vote, really?
That's a good point. I can't remember. It's not is it the main character?
No,
or is it someone else?
No,
someone else
he's the first.
Out?
He's the first to go.
That's
he's
right.
the first to vote, though.
Yeah, because it goes from reverse number order.
It does.
And so the casting vote is by player number 1, which is the old man.
And he chooses, obviously, not
to end the game.
To carry on with the game. And then they're all dumped off at various points. And then reminded of the horrors of the outside. Yeah.
Well, the episode's called Hell, isn't it? And what you think that is, because the opening shot of it is the coffins of the people who were killed in the first game being incinerated. And that appears to be, that must be the worst thing. But actually, what's quite clever about it is that their lives outside of these games are hell. And inside of the games, they've got more of a chance of gaining a life through winning this money.
Yes.
What we also failed to mention is that he's got a childhood friend who his mum is very proud of, because he's this big he graduated from Seoul National University. Yeah. He's a big businessman and all that. But even he's in this game, even though the main character has been told by this other character's mum that he's on a business trip abroad.
Right.
And he's been there for years, but actually he's been embezzling.
Isn't it during the second one that he learns that his mum has fallen ill?
Yes, yeah.
And she needs medical treatment for her diabetes.
Yeah.
And it's gone. Her feet are in a bad state, and she needs perhaps to have them amputated. And she discharges herself from the hospital, and it almost feels like that would be the right reason to go back into the game. But for other twists and turns, that ends up being quite a tragic situation. But he goes back into the into the game, and the second game is a Honeycomb Game, and his mate has an idea of what this game actually is. And essentially the game is that each of the players are given a tin, and when they open the tin, there's a shape in the tin, and this tin happens as a result of them being told that they've got to pick between a star, an umbrella, a triangle. Is that it?
And a square?
I don't think so. I almost feel like it's just 3 shapes: a star, an umbrella, and a triangle. Maybe there's another shape, I don't know. And what they have to do is they have to get the shape out of the centre of the honeycomb without breaking the outside of the honeycomb. And again, they've got a time limit in which to do that. It's just hideous, isn't it? It's hideous.
If they break the shape that they've got to extract from the honeycomb, then they get shot.
They're
point
out
blank by someone with a pistol.
Yes.
And so the more people make mistakes, the more gunshots go off, the more people make mistakes.
And obviously the fewer sides to the shape, the easier it should be to extract from the tin. And then you start to see that people are being quite devious with their methods of getting these things out. One woman uses a lighter on the cocktail stick and starts to melt it. She's brought back in with her because you're not supposed to have anything on you, but she manages to smuggle cigarettes and a lighter in with her. And our man chooses to lick the reverse side of it, therefore melting the sugar.
He can see that the outline of the shape is thinner than the rest of the honeycomb, and therefore if he just licks it,
indeed,
it will pop out.
Indeed. Then on to round 3. I feel I don't like being that person who goes into too much detail.
We've missed a massive other plot point in episode 2, which is the policeman.
Okay, go on.
The policeman, who, when the main character comes out at the beginning of the episode, he goes to a police station to report what's going on to the police. The police don't believe him, but there is a detective who overhears what he says and sees the card that he's been given with the phone number to enter the game.
Can I just enter a disclaimer here that it's incredible that I'm able to do this anyway, because I either remember what I see or remember what I hear, not both. Therefore, remembering how things happen and the order in which they happen is rare.
That's my job.
Unless it's a Disney.
That's what I'm doing.
But anyway.
Could you get me a thing? Thank you. So he sees the card that the main character has brought in to kind of prove where he's been. They phone through to this number and it's just a random number. So they don't believe him. But he has got a brother that's missing. And when he goes to check his brother's residence, there is a little box there, and inside it is one of these cards. So he gets suspicious, and he tails he keeps an eye on the main character and then sees him get picked up by this van, and then follows this van to the docks where all the vans get on a boat. He gets on the boat. He dispatches one of the drivers,
and he becomes he becomes either a triangle or a square. Can't remember which.
Yeah,
I think there's a ranking.
Yeah, I think triangle, square, circle.
I think I think square like outranks triangle. But anyway, there's a pecking order for sure.
So yeah, he's in there and he's infiltrated and he's essentially trying to figure out where his brother is, but also he's also discovering this whole world, but from the other side. So that's quite an interesting.
Yes. Meanwhile, inside, alliances are starting to be built,
forged. Yeah.
And as always, very much like Lord of the Flies, you get the good guys made up of what we perceive to be either physically or mentally weak, going up against the bolshy shitheads, the arrogant, the
tattooed,
the tattooed, those ones. And obviously, we know. Well, we'd like to think that the meek, as the Bible says, the meek shall inherit the earth. Anyway, the game takes a bit of a turn because there's a bit of a riot, and then they are told to sort of take sides. They need to pick a team because the next game is tug of war.
Yeah,
and of course, the whole point of tug of war is it's about strategy. It's not about strength necessarily, although that does help. But it's about strategy. And again, the way they play tug of war leads to deaths because they have to they don't play each other on a rotation. They play one side the side who loses dies, and then there ends up being 3 teams left.
Yeah, they have to get into teams of 10, don't they?
Yeah,
and there are 3 games.
Let's just leave that at that. And of course, our main guy's team.
About the meek and the strong, weren't we?
Right. But the fact that our main guy has formed.
Sorry, I'm just fiddling.
The fact that our main guy has formed a relationship with the oldest contestant. The oldest contestant, he sticks with him and has him on their team, and they end up sort of picking up a couple of girls as well.
Yeah, despite the fact that his friend wants all men because women are weak.
Which is a very, again...
Yeah, quite a backwards or...
very prehistoric way of looking at things, but very typical of...
He also didn't want the old man.
Right. Very typical of certain cultures, I suppose.
But it's here you also get... There's a North Korean girl there who's picked on by all sides because she's North Korean. And is viewed with suspicion. She also pickpocketed our main character in the first episode as well. So there's a bit of kind of tension there too. So she's not welcome really wherever. But it turns out actually through her backstory, she's trying to, get money to bring her mum over the border.
To give a better life, really.
Yeah.
But neither here nor there.
Yeah.
And they form a team, and it seems that the old guy has a strategy for success. And it is quite clever. Well, actually, because you at this point you sort of know that this team is full of the people you like, give or take 1 or 2, and they have to win. But how? And they're going to win, but it's more about the way it transpires.
What was interesting to me is that as the old guy was explaining his tactic to the team, you were sat there nodding. You were like, "Yeah." Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is because my form had to do. I have a year 12, year 13 tutor group, and for sports day they had to do tug of war, and I'd said to them that there's a strategy, and they followed my strategy. I'm not going to disclose it just in case anyone from the other houses happens to be listening, but there was a strategy that we employed, and it worked, and I'm not saying any more about that. So kind of everything that was being said made sense. So anyway, they end up winning. Again, not saying how.
However, before they end up winning, the episode ends.
Oh yeah, and you have to then watch the next episode.
Which was like quite late on in the evening as well that we were watching it.
Correct.
And it was just one of those things where you have to watch the next episode. And by this point, you're on to episode 5 of 9.
You are.
And yes, like you say, you find out that actually the tactic works. Only just, but it does.
Yes, it does. I'm just trying to think what the next game is. I think
there's they go back to their kind of holding pen, and the teams have now formed. There are 3 quite distinct sets of teams. There's only really 2 that we focus on, and it's the lead characters and our friends and the nasty people, which also includes that horrible woman who tries to kind of get in with anyone she can because she's desperate.
Yeah.
And they form barricades. Our team forms a barricade to stop any kind of rioting that happened the previous night from occurring.
Yes, but they decide to give it a wide berth, unbeknownst to them.
Yes, because there's another whole subplot going on behind the scenes where there's a doctor who
is on the baddie team.
He's on the baddie team because he's being fed information from the guards as to what the next game is going to be, because he is being taken out at night by the guards to perform
autopsies, basically,
on the dead or dying bodies, and basically
a bit like body snatching, where their organs are then
they're selling the organs off to China,
cut out and put into special protecting solution.
Yeah.
And bags.
A couple of the soldiers dive down underneath and go out and meet a boat somewhere and sell them. Which, again, like, we don't really know a lot about these people that are the officers, the kind of soldiers. Like, we don't really know too much about them, even though we spend half the series trying to figure that out with the policeman who's behind the lines. And it turns out that he's taken the role of one of the people who's in on this organ smuggling operation. And he's acting really weird because he doesn't know why he's there. And they don't know that he's definitely not the guy that was originally number 29.
Yeah. I think from the tug of war, they then play the bridge game, don't they? Because I think it's the bridge. It's not marbles. Is it marbles first?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, so we don't really know what those guys' motivations are. We don't really know whether they are totally aware of what they're doing. Like, they must be. But when that one guard takes his helmet off to kind of confront the guy from the bad team who goes astray, he's shot, but he looks kind of vacant. So we're not really... Anyway.
Is it around about this point then that we see the people in the gold masks?
They come in only the last couple of episodes, I think. They're there for the bridge, which we're going to come on to. They don't see this bit, which is the fourth game, which is the marbles. Right.
So at this point then, oh my God. Oh, it's just hideous.
But by this point, the doctor is the one who tries to escape. And is killed.
Yeah.
As is the soldier who unmasks himself, because it's
against the policy to do that.
Yeah. Everyone's supposed to be equal. It's supposed to be egalitarian. Everyone's got the same chances of winning as everyone else. No one knows what the games are, so they go in cold. Anyway, this next game, they're told to get into pairs.
Yes, now...
And not pairs, but partners.
Yes, and there's a very, it's that rule, isn't it? That wording. The wording. And you think, well, hold on a minute, there's a deliberate choice of that wording. And...
there was me going like, I wonder if they're going to have to play each other. And you were like, no, it's partners. They're going to be playing as a team.
No. It was the other way round.
Was it the other way around?
I said they'd have to play against each other.
Oh, okay, fine. One of us was right. It wasn't me.
It was me. It was me.
You won't be surprised to find out.
It was me.
And this is probably the worst.
It's awful.
It's because awful. The problem being is that the first game, almost half the field is taken out. You didn't get to know.
No, but that's fine. But as the numbers reduce, of course,
you're getting to know these characters, and you kind of know most of their backstories.
Yeah, and then you realise that there's a husband and wife, and of course,
and they've stuck together.
And they stick together through the next game, which is marbles.
And they've got 30 minutes to play marbles against each other. They've got 10 marbles each, and they've got to end up, one of them must 20. Have all 20 and the other one doesn't. Basically. And the one who ends up with nothing is eliminated.
Yeah, in the usual fashion.
I'm quite glad that they didn't spend any time watching the couple.
Yeah.
I think that makes it more effective somehow, because you don't see the struggle that went on between them.
No.
Because I think that would have been too much.
It wasn't needed. And I think that was really clever, actually, to make you remember that there's a couple in this.
I think it's in the back of your mind the whole time. Well, you're like, when are we cutting to the couple? When are we cutting to the couple? And it never allows you.
Yeah. Well, our guy ends up sticking with the old man.
Yeah.
And the old man goes on a bit of a strange...
He starts to... You think, well, maybe the tumour is
starting to affect him because he starts to see this marble village as a replica of where he was brought up. And he takes our guy on this sort of mazy tour going, I recognise that house and that's the street I used to play on. And suddenly there's my front door. And And I think they eventually do get around to playing marbles, but the rules of this game are that you can play it however you want.
Yeah.
And the other, the shitty guy, the high flying guy who has been on our main guy's team, pairs up with a nice bloke, Ali,
the Pakistani,
who is fluent in Korean somehow. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's a horrible story.
Yeah, that honestly, like, that was where, if you didn't trust him at the Honeycomb Game, you certainly don't trust him after this.
Or on the bridge.
The bridge comes next.
Oh, right.
That's
okay.
what I'm saying.
I really thought the bridge was first.
No. The bridge is the second to last game.
Okay.
Because only 3 of them make it across.
Right, yeah. Fine.
Yeah, this is where you really start to see the kind of really devious side of the main character's friend. Then you've got, like, the bad guys. The guy with the tattoo snake on his face and his mate, they play each other, and it looks like the guy with the tattoo on his face is getting beaten, but then he decides to change the game halfway through to something that's much more, or much less skill based.
Yeah, it's more
or
hit
luck,
and miss.
more, yeah. And the others that you get to see are the 2 girls, the North Korean girl.
Yeah, they don't play at all, do they?
No. And there's a
and
kind
then
of...
they decide to throw a marble and who can get it close to the wall.
Yeah, they basically spend the entire half hour getting to know each other.
Because
I think there's a slight bit of kind of... I wasn't sure whether there was a bit of kind of sexual tension there or not, whether there was some sort of... That's what I got from it. Because the South Korean girls seem to be, like, always slightly flirting with
they had, both of those girls had an extraordinary beauty that Western women will never be able to achieve.
Right.
Their faces, just this symmetrical appearance of their faces is something that we can only aspire to.
They were just talking about
both
running
of
away
them
together.
Really, really beautiful looking girls. And anyway, let's not divulge too much there, but yeah, they
it's
get to
a
horrible
know each
game
other the whole way through. Their thing was that the one that threw one marble closest to a wall won.
Yeah,
the North Korean girl went first, and the South Korean girl just dropped her marble.
Yeah.
The bad guy with the tattoo on his face decided that the game they were playing was to dig a little hole, and the person who got their marble into the hole took all the other marbles around that had been previously thrown. And it goes down to the last marble, and he wins only because his opponent's marble knocks his into the hole, and he wins the whole lot straight out, which is just evil. It's luck, and it's not fair. Because that guy was doing really well at the game they originally started playing.
Yeah.
You've got the main character's mate and the Pakistani national. He completely duped Ali.
Yes.
Out of his marbles. That was horrible.
That won't say how, but that was just cruel.
Yeah. And then you've got
our main guy and the old guy.
And our main guy takes advantage of the fact that it appears that the old guy is starting to lose his marbles.
Literally.
By trying to convince him that he'd said odd instead of even or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And eventually the old man gives him his last marble.
Yeah.
Even though it turns out that he's known all along that he's been playing him.
Yeah.
And then as the guards move in to shoot him, our main character is led away.
Right. And then you hear a gunshot.
You hear a gun go off. And this is the end of that episode. And you and I were both in a very fragile state.
Yeah. You could be forgiven for, I suppose, being quite premonitory that you will see what's coming.
Mm.
But I think sometimes it's the fact that because of the premonitory ideas that you might have, it makes it worse because you want to be wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, then they play this bridge game.
Well, this was the thing. Like, this is the second time that episode that a character is dragged off, and you assume bad things might happen. But we all know that the rule of television and film is that if someone doesn't die on screen, they're not dead.
Not always.
No, because the horrible woman gets dragged away when everyone partners up. No one partners with her and she gets dragged off, and you're like, could do with not seeing her again. But deep down you know that she probably will be there. And sure enough, when the survivors of the marble game get back, there she is in bed waiting for them. And then episode 7 is the bridge game.
Right.
Where whoever's left, and I think there's only like, I don't know, how many people were playing marbles? 20?
Yeah.
So there's like 11 people left.
Something like that. I can't really remember, to be honest.
No.
The numbers are a bit hazy. But this bridge is made up of tempered glass and perspex.
Yeah, or regular glass.
Yeah. And what they have to do is figure out how to get across safely. If they fall, then that's it.
There are 2 bridges, aren't there? There's 2 tracks.
Well, there are 2 tracks. I mean, we all know that if you want to walk across ice, you get down on all fours because the chances of the ice breaking are greatly reduced because... greatly reduce the chance? Yes. Yeah. Because your weight is spread. And the same thing applies to glass. And my head is going, get down on all fours. But they're not. They're not doing that. They are literally walking across it as people walk.
Well, I think it's because there's a jump in between the 2 pieces of glass that might be too wide for them to crawl across or kind of reach out and go across. I think
it's
maybe.
A solid bridge.
No, it's not. No, there's a jump. You've got to jump from one bit to that bit, and then there's a jump to the next bit.
Yes, but once you've realised which is the solid piece, then you can get down on all fours. And it can be done. There were no barriers between those bits. They were all joined.
No, they weren't. There were gaps in between each bit. They had to jump between each pane of glass.
Okay.
They had to.
Okay, but I still think it can be crawled. But that's neither here nor there.
What they should have done, what I would have probably tried to do and may have failed, is try to crawl using the tracks on the outside and shimmy across. Whether that would have worked,
it's the same principle, though, isn't it?
But yes, it is. But what I'm saying is, I mean, I can't really explain it to you here. But there are tracks like that. But there's a pane of glass here and a pane of glass here. But there's a gap in between the 2.
Okay, but you can still make that. But you can still make that
by
on your hands and knees.
But there's air.
Anyway, let's not
that is an actual gap where there's air.
Okay.
How do you? I don't understand how you.
It doesn't matter. Don't worry. This is now becoming. It's now going off the point.
Okay. So it's at this point as well that we meet the foreign VIPs.
Yeah, that's kind of strange. I think it's like Professor Snow times 5, isn't it, or 4?
President Snow.
What did I say?
Professor.
Oh, President.
No,
sorry. Did I say President?
You did, yeah.
President or
it's
Professor?
Okay. Yeah.
President.
Yeah.
Snow. Yeah, Donald. It's like meeting Donald Sutherland times 4.
It's odd because, as I said about Battle Royale at the start, there's a point to this, and also Hunger Games. They're both televised things that go out to the country or the world, depending on the fiction that you're talking about. So there's a subtext to those that is reality TV is bad, and this is how bad it could get, you know?
Mm-hmm.
but this isn't televised. There are just like 5 or 6 super rich people who watch live.
I didn't really get the point of them.
No,
if I'm honest. Unless they were placing bets on. But it didn't. That part didn't make any sense to me because I couldn't see the relevance of them.
Well, they were clearly placing bets on people, but whether they were doing it per round or for the whole thing, I wasn't entirely sure about. But also, they seemed to be there to explain the plot. Like, they did a lot of exposition. Like, they were like, oh, this is the one where they've got to do this and blah, 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 and he's got to do that, and they've got to get to the end by doing this. And it was like, well, I know. I've been watching it. Like, why? And they're crap. The actors were rubbish.
I wasn't jarred by them.
But they weren't. They were pointless, I thought.
I just didn't see the point of them, No. I think it made... I suppose looking at it now, being given an opportunity to sort of think about it, it made the whole thing a farce. That this is what happens if you've got money.
Right, yes.
And this bacchanalian situation, which it was.
Very nice.
Thank you. Where money can buy you this kind of lifestyle. And these people who are in crippling debt, you are our puppets almost. That, if anything, is what it...
Well, I think that was the point of this
suggested.
one. In that, like, the others are about the kind of dangers and the crapness of reality TV, and where that could, like, the voyeurism culture that has built up over the last couple of decades. This is much more to do with the super rich playing with the lives of the super poor because they're bored, effectively, because they've got so much money they don't know what else to do with it. Let's create these games,
right,
where people are literally pitted against each other for our amusement. But there's not so much of a difference, really. But this is much more money based, than it is, media. Yes, so they come in and they're betting on these things, and so the people are jumping from glass to glass, and obviously the ones who are first are disadvantaged because the last person is going to be the one who has the better chance of getting across, because the people before them have either made it and shown the path, or they've died by falling through the normal glass. Then it gets down to like 4 or 5 people.
Well, just pause there a moment, because the policeman, meanwhile, has managed to find a way to become a waiter to these rich toffs.
In the meantime, he's broken into like a little...
Many things, and found out many things.
But found out, most importantly, that his brother was playing this game in 2015.
That's right.
So his brother had actually been missing for 6 years, which isn't what I got.
No, which didn't add up either.
Because it was like, his landlady was like, oh, he hasn't paid his rent in like a few months.
Yeah, it was a bit strange, that.
Yeah.
But anyway, he ends up becoming a waiter to these
VIPs,
dicks, which is again part of the whole point. And then I suppose it comes down to 3, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, you've got the 4 that are left, because the horrible lady has taken down the nasty guy with the neck tattoo, because he fucked her over, and so she put her arms around him and pulled him off the bridge.
Right.
So the last 4 people are your main guy, his friend who's an arsehole, and the North Korean girl, and then there's this other guy who used to work in a glass making factory, so he could tell the difference between the tempered glass and the not, but then they turn the lights off and his advantage is to nothing.
Yeah, because he knows about glass.
Yeah, so he falls.
Well, he doesn't fall, does he?
Oh, let's not. Yeah,
let's
right.
Not,
yeah. Your
let's
main
not say
character's friend pushes him.
Okay, you are going to say that. That's fine. Okay.
Because he won't make the decision. He's an arsehole. I hate him.
So then there are 3.
Yes, and then the bridge.
But let's. I mean, details.
Yeah, no, only because it comes to play in the next episode, because the bridge explodes, glass flies everywhere, fade to black.
True, and then they are told that they need to change for the final, or for the next game. They need to change, and they're all given dinner suits, and the North Korean girl, as she goes off to change, transpires that she has a massive piece of glass wedged in her stomach, which she pulls out. But of course, her moments are numbered. She's going to eventually bleed to death. And they are taken into this room with the Bacchanalian toffs, who are not there, and placed around a big table, and are given
a steak dinner,
basically a decent meal, their first decent meal in probably since the beginning of the games.
Yeah, and
I think they're all watching each other quite tentatively, aren't they? Say what the situation is with the knife, because the knife they're allowed to sort of take with them, aren't
obviously, when you're eating steak, you get given a steak knife to cut through the tough meat. The two men eat their entire meal and quaff their red wine very quickly, and the North Korean girl, because she's so badly injured, doesn't quite finish her meal, but then everything is taken away at the same time except the steak knives. And then it's a night until the next game. So there's three of them in this massive room, each with a knife.
Yes, and our bloke realises that the North Korean girl is injured and bleeding to death. And as he goes to call for medical help,
help comes, but not in the way that he expected.
No.
And then you realise that his friend is an arsehole.
The biggest arsehole ever. And then the final game.
Yes, which is the Squid Game.
Which you see right at the beginning.
Yes.
So the story comes full circle. And he and his friend play the Squid Game. Now, the Squid Game rules are as follows.
Oh, you've got them open.
I have.
Well done.
Just give me a sec. Just give me a moment.
And this is the second of only two games that the VIPs are watching live, and then explaining the rules to you, even though you've seen the rules explained to you in the first episode.
Yes. Right. The Squid Game rules are: first, the attacker needs to go into the squid drawing, run past the defence, and tap the squid's head with his foot to win. Secondly, the defender must push the attacker out of the drawing to win. I prefer British Bulldogs, frankly.
The attacker can only use one leg unless they cross the squid's head in the middle, right? And then they can use both their feet.
Yeah.
Clearly, this must be a South Korean game.
So this is going to be... it's not just a game of who wins here. This is then a game of trying to right all the wrongs. And of course it starts to rain.
Yeah, biblical.
Yeah. And that's sort of the end of the game in the internal world that's been created. In the external world, the policeman has managed to sort of tunnel his way out, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And ends up in the middle of the sea, don't know which one, somewhere, and has been spotted by the PlayStation men. And then runs quite expertly up a sheer cliff face for what seems like hours, and without breaking into a sweat. But even more devastatingly, they find a quicker way up. And so they get there first.
he may or may not have managed to get across a couple of pictures and videos of what he's seen to his
Quite, because frustratingly, he hasn't got any phone signal.
It's amazing that his phone
and his
battery
phone
has lasted that many days.
Yeah, it comes out on 12%, which is devastating. But anyway, I think we'll leave it to everybody else to sort of figure out or decide
who the man in black
is. But we never see or hear of the policeman again after that point, do we? Which is sad. Because you kind of want a bit of a happy ending,
well,
I suppose,
don't you? It to be taken down, don't you?
Mm.
You want this organisation or whatever the hell it is stopped.
You do, yeah.
But seemingly not going to be the case.
No.
Our main guy wins.
He wins the game. And he then is taken out in a van, I believe.
Limo.
Or whatever. He's taken out in a 4-wheeled vehicle and gassed so that he can't see where he's going.
Yeah.
Then he's dropped off. And in his mouth, at the end, he finds his banker's card, which he then puts into the hole in the wall. And as it transpires, he has something like 45.6 billion won in his bank account. And he draws out, 10,000 won, which is about a couple of quid. And he gives it to someone.
He gives it to his mate's mum.
No. He gives her a suitcase of money.
No, but originally he walks past her shop.
Oh, yes, that's right. With some
he's
mackerel.
all beaten up.
So she gives him a bag of mackerel, yes.
To go and take to his mum.
Yes.
And he gives her the 10,000 won.
That's right.
And he goes home, finds out mum isn't doing so good.
No. And then
it cuts to 1 year later.
Yeah, it does. And he has a beard.
Yeah.
Which doesn't suit him so well.
He gets called into the bank all the way over in some other part of the country, the headquarters, and they say, well, we've not heard from you in ages.
Yeah, because he hasn't spent any of his money.
Yeah. We've got a specific thing that we can offer you for our VIP customers and all this kind of stuff. And he just asks for 10,000 won. And walks away.
He asks the guy if he can lend him some money, which is funny.
Yeah.
And the guy does. But then he gets a card,
yes,
doesn't he?
Yes, off a flower woman.
And it says, from your gamble.
Gamble, yeah, well done.
From your gamble, double G.
Which is the term that was used by the old man in the marbles game. Oh, we're the Ganbu, because Ganbu were the people who would go round and make sure everyone had marbles or whatever it was.
Right. And this
or
is
they were
when,
like the masters of the marbles or whatever.
Yeah, and this is when you realise that
holy shit,
why you don't see the old guy dying, because the old guy is still alive. Which we called as we were watching.
You called it better than me. I was convinced that they didn't show him dying because he's such a sympathetic character that it would be too much to show him dying. That's what I genuinely thought. You are much harder than me.
I just thought that it was. I didn't bank on the ending, but I thought, they want us to think he's died, but he's going to come back and it's going to be lovely. So I still have that.
He did come back.
I still have that tinted view.
Yeah. But it turns out that he's the mastermind behind everything, which I didn't see. Did you?
No.
No.
Not at all, no.
He's the guy that runs, or one of the people that runs the Squid Game. And essentially he was taking part because he...
Let's put it this way, never trust old people.
Especially when they've got nothing to live for.
Especially when they're dying of a brain tumour.
Yeah.
in his case.
Yeah, so he took part because it was a bigger thrill than betting on it, basically. He's got that much money. And yeah, so our guy is even more thrown into turmoil and then goes and gets his hair.
He gets his hair dyed red, and the director says...
Oh, you've seen
that
this,
the reason why he got the main guy to have his hair dyed red was because it demonstrates his inner anger, that he's angry at things.
But also because it's the colour that he would least be willing to get his hair dyed. Like, it's almost like a rebellion against what he's done, as well as that anger is what I've heard too. Because Greg from All Seeing Guys, we were kind of talking about this earlier on today, and he posted that same thing that you've read, I think. And he's just about to go off to visit his daughter, because we didn't talk about the fact that he's divorced and his daughter...
but there are lots of things we haven't talked about, and I think that would just be a bridge too far.
But he's about to go and see.
He's about to go and sort out a lot of things.
Yeah, he's left
that he has either left undone, or in his new life said that he would do.
Yes.
And perhaps, the whole point being to make himself a better person.
Yeah.
To almost redeem for the shit that he's caused.
I also think he's trying to give away a lot of the money because he doesn't want to become like the old man.
Well, that's
because the old man had too much money. Do you see what he's not trying to accumulate money. He's trying to kind of make up, because he makes up for his friend.
Well, then I suppose the only way we would know how that feels is if we had excessive amounts of it ourselves. And I think everyone would like to have more money than they do have,
of course,
but then to have an obscene amount of money, you might end up becoming that person who can give a suitcase of money to someone when it doesn't really make a dent in anything, because you know that rates of interest, even with them being at 0.01% as they are currently in this country, you can still make some interest on what you have that would be enough to tide you over. And it used to be that if you had, £10 million in the bank, I think that I'm right, and I'm sure people will correct me, and I'm fine with that, but you can make something like £6,000 interest a day.
Yeah, I'm sure I've heard that.
Which you can live off quite comfortably. Who can't?
You should.
And therefore, you're never spending the money that you have.
You're just spending the interest. Yeah, which is not your money. So why not? Yeah, absolutely.
So it becomes a fine line between having none of it because you've abused it, and then having more of it than you know what to do with, and then that guilty feeling that you've got to give it to those others, I suppose.
But also he's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to redress things that I think, obviously with...
But we all know the right thing is to not abuse money in the first place.
Yes, precisely. He would never have ended up there. But then he would never have ended up with 46.5 billion won. However, on his way through the airport to go and see his family, he sees a man in the same position that he was at the very beginning. And he sees the guy who introduced him to this corporation. And he takes the card off this unfortunate and calls them up and tries to get, tells them that he's not to be fucked with, basically.
Yeah.
And they basically are like, get on the plane. So they're watching him still. Even though he's won, he's still under observation. And then he doesn't get on the plane, which kind of, and then that's it. That's the whole series over. And
then it's been speculation as to whether there's going to be a series 2.
I can't imagine there won't be a series 2 because it's done so well. However, I would hope that there isn't going to be one. which is what I think you were going to say.
Well, if it's a traditional set of games, they can't change the games, can they?
True.
And the games would have to be played in the same sort of way, with the same sort of people. It would just be repeating.
Yeah, unless it goes off, and it's more about trying to fight the system, but then that's not as compelling.
But that's just naff, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. So I would hope there isn't a second series, but I almost can't see there not being one because it's done so well.
The only way I suppose Hunger Games got away with it was because there were quarter quells.
Yeah.
And you had to play each quarter.
Well remembered.
Thanks.
Was it every 25 years there was a special?
I don't know, but either way, that's how there ended up being
2 within the space of 2 years or so.
3 books.
Yeah.
Because it was about a quell.
It's basically this once in a half a generation thing that happens.
But anyway, there you go.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
I feel I want to watch them again.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
Because I want to pay less attention to the subtitles this time, because I know what's going on.
Yeah.
And therefore more attention to the visuals.
Well, should we watch it with the dub?
I don't know.
With the English dub?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I would have to see. But that's what I'm thinking at the moment. I feel like I did with Pan's Labyrinth. Watching it the first time, I had to, and I said right at the beginning, I have to concentrate on 3 things, which I don't like doing because I'm a visual person and I don't like being inhibited with my visual understanding of what's going on. Hence the argument about the bridge. I don't give a shit about the fucking bridge, to be honest.
I know, I'm sorry.
But that's beside the point. It's because I have to focus on one thing. Because I'm having to listen and then see how those words they're saying fit into the subtitles, which compromises my watching. So that's the point.
I think it's one of those things that it's difficult to do, and I still find it difficult to try and read and watch at the same time when you're also reading and watching, and also trying to take in the way that you watch things. Hearing is difficult. But what would the British version? What would have been the games from our past that would have been in there? Because Squid Game I've never heard of.
British Bulldog.
I'm thinking skipping as well, but the skipping ropes are made of razors or something.
We used to do French skipping with bits of elastic. No, that's double Dutch. With French skipping with bits of elastic, that you have a big sort of like a loop of elastic, and it hurts if it snaps as well. So that's painful in itself. But you have 2 people standing with it round their ankles. Okay. And it gets progressively higher.
Okay.
As you go.
Right.
But then there are also things that you can perform on this elastic.
I was going to say in and out.
Oh yeah, you can do in and out. You've got to stand on it. You've got to...
Oh wow.
It was great fun. French skipping, it was called. Just remembered that. French skipping. Yep, razor blades is a glass.
Razor blades.
Anything
skipping.
That would hurt.
Yeah.
Lacerations.
Hopscotch.
Oof.
Except
ouch.
I don't know how. I mean,
you play it with people's eyeballs. Chuck the eyeballs out.
Yeah, there was a thing about rolling. Was it dice? Did you roll dice or something?
I don't know. Stones. You chuck stones.
Was it stones?
Didn't you?
Yeah, I don't know. I never.
Hot coals.
Yeah.
Hot coals or eyeballs.
Yeah, one of them, like every other one, is like a hot plate.
Or a limb.
Like,
from
it's
the
like a
girl
teppanyaki plate. It's
or
like...
you just throw someone's limb and they just cut it off during skipping. Oh yeah, she's lost a fucking leg. Pew! Let's just lob that into the hopscotch ring. Excellent.
And obviously, red light, green light is what's the time, Mr. Wolf?
What's
because
the time,
that is
Mr. Wolf?
basically what that game is.
Or grandmother's footsteps.
Yes, that's another name for it. Yeah.
That's pretty bad. I'm
trying to remember Playground.
Well, I think we've had the same playground games. I don't really remember anymore.
So they were always on about whether girls' games would come into it, like Cat's Cradle and stuff like that.
Boys used to play battleships in the playground, didn't they?
Battleships? Really? What, like actual, like the board game Battleships? Or...
Yeah, and this is where I see a lead weight being dropped from a great height. Fuck off, I'm playing skipping, you dickhead. That sort of thing. Sunk this battleship over here.
It's battleships, but they're actually landmines.
Never understood the boys who said, "Right, do you want to play battleships?" What the fuck are you doing? Crack on without any water whatsoever. But that definitely used to happen at my school, and good old conkers.
Yes, conkers.
Well, let's play with a bomb.
Yeah,
a tiny little bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, conkers is a good one. I hadn't thought of that. But yeah, there's a few.
Cat's Cradle. And if you ever did play Cat's Cradle.
Yeah, because they kept talking about that in the... But this is the difference between boy games and girl games, isn't it? And that's what they were saying through that. And Cat's Cradle was certainly one that I was aware of but never played because I was a boy.
Oh.
Same with kind of hopscotch, which is why I don't know what you throw down to figure out.
I never played it. I mean, we had there were always hopscotch grids marked out, but never really played it.
No.
But dodgeball would be good to bring it into the 20th century. Dodgeball, simply because of I don't know, something.
It could be like a mace,
solid.
Like a spiked ball.
I say bring it into the 20th century as if we're pre-20th century children. It's not really what I meant.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the games that we're talking about have been around a lot longer than that.
Well, Ring-a-Ring-a Roses was based on the plague, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Musical chairs.
Oh, sit on a spike.
Yeah.
It's like it's literally like Daniel Craig had to sit on during Casino Royale.
The world's going to know you died scratching my balls. Or you take away a chair every time and the person left standing gets shot. It's probably the way that it would happen. That's the way that it would happen in a Squid Game type way. There's just a few ideas. Be quite interesting to hear what other people come
Let us know how you get on.
Yeah.
If you're still alive.
I'm trying to think of team games, but we won't get into that.
Well, no.
No. Because we've spent long enough as it is talking about just one thing.
We have.
Yeah. So I'm very grateful that you were here to talk about it.
Cheers.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad that I enjoyed it. I'm glad that that it was made. It was really good, and I hope there's not another season, but there probably will be. I'm quite impressed that you want to watch it again.
But I've
I know that you've explained that, but I'm quite impressed. Because you don't often want to watch things more than once.
No, but there were just too many things going on that I have to process. And that's why I wanted to watch Pan's Labyrinth again, for the same reason.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe we should go and do that.
Not now.
Breaking the illusion somewhat, but yep, fine. We'll do it at another point in time. So that's that. Get in touch. Let us know what games you would like to, or you would imagine being played
Dominoes.
if it was set in your country or your childhood. And get in touch. Let us know. So yeah, for well, this isn't going out on the main. Is it going out on the main feed?
Yeah,
it is
go
going
on.
out on the main feed.
Yeah.
So until next time, I have been Tom, and you've been Joe. See you next time. Bye. She's not doing it. Bye.